Good evening and welcome to everyone. Today is April 13th, 2021. Thank you for joining us. I'm Phil Santonzi, the program chair for ASQ Section 1510, Southeast Florida. Welcome to this monthly presentation. If you want to know more about ASQ Southeast Florida Section 1510, please check out the site at the Communities tab on the myasq.org website. And you can join our LinkedIn group at ASQ Southeast Florida Section 1510 as well. As I said, that's where we'll post the slides later. This live event is being recorded. The recording will be uploaded to the YouTube channel ASQ 1510 as well. During the presentation, please keep your audio muted until we open up for questions. I would like at this point to introduce Steve Kramer, who's our section chair and who has a few words to share with us. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, yeah, excellent. Thank you, Phil, and welcome everyone. I have the distinct privilege tonight to recognize a colleague. I would like to share this. Do you see my screen?
It's coming up, Steve. Yes. There it is.
Okay. All right. So we, the board, the current board of 1510, would like to recognize with sincere appreciation for the many years of service, Eduardo Suarez.
Hey, Eduardo.
Eduardo, you've been a fixture.
All right, Eduardo.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're thrilled to this, and this is real. This is not just virtual. So yeah, so Eduardo has held like every post at least once or twice. He was here way before most all of us got here, and he's still with us. Even though he's not on the board, he's still always a mainstay, and we really appreciate his continued undying, unflappable support. And so, Eduardo, we appreciate everything you do. So,
okay, thanks, Steve and Eduardo. Congratulations. We do appreciate all the service you've given to the section over these years. We appreciate that very much. Well, let's get on to tonight's speaker and his virtual tour of Seal Dynamics. We've got it. Perfect. So right. Peter Surak, who's the Quality Assurance Director at Seal Dynamics, which is a HEICO company. Before joining Seal Dynamics in 2016, Pete held positions as Quality Manager and Senior Quality Engineer at BLAC and at Cobham Life Support, all in the Tampa Bay region. He has earned both a BS and an MS degree in aerospace engineering at Boston University. Pete is the ASQ organizational membership, the enterprise representative for the HEICO aerospace companies. Some of you may be familiar with HEICO, which is actually headquartered here in Hollywood. I know there's at least two others on the call that are familiar with HEICO. Since the company's founding in 1976, Seal Dynamics has evolved into one of the world's largest providers of engineering and logistics solutions serving global aviation and OEM industries. From the Tampa facility, Seal Dynamics provides OEM-approved replacement parts from the most successful corporations in the industry. In addition, Seal Dynamics provides full-spectrum engineering solutions from the design and manufacture of custom and federal aviation administration and PMA, which is the parts manufacturer approval parts to engineered retrofits. Substantial resources, coupled with an experienced team of engineering sales professionals, enable Seal Dynamics to provide products, service, and support that are unmatched in the marketplace. Thank you for joining us tonight, Pete, and I welcome you on behalf of everybody on the call, and take it away.
This is, I've actually given this presentation in virtual tours for some of our regional manufacturing associations. And I give this particular presentation to some educators as well to get them thinking about manufacturing. Obviously, I'm really active in our local regional manufacturing association, as well as the way I came to know Phil is through the Florida Advanced Technological Education Center, FLATE. Some of you might be aware of. I've served as the chair for the Industrial Advisory Committee for FLATE now for a number of years, and met some just outstanding people through that relationship. So, as you point out, Seal Dynamics is owned by HEICO, and we're a commercial aerospace company. We provide aftermarket solutions, and so I'm going to sort of walk you through that that process and on how we do that and what we do exactly. Technically, we're AS 9100 certified, so technically we are a manufacturing facility, as in, but we really sort of outsource all of the main manufacturing processes. So even facilities like LPI, where Frank Kirchner works, they're one of our suppliers as well. So we even use some of our own internal companies for the production or manufacture of some of our parts. But if you think about an aircraft, and what we do is we identify opportunities. So HEICO has a broad reach of people around the world throughout our customers, on site at some of our customers, constantly in communications with our customers. And when they come to us with a problem, say a part from Boeing or Goodrich or Pratt Whitney or GE or Airbus, that and there's many cases that could present them with an issue. Maybe it's an aging aircraft, and this is an airline that flies maybe an older platform, or maybe it's a part that Boeing is charging a great deal of money for. They'll come to one of the PMA companies from HEICO, like us, and ask us if this is something that we can reverse engineer and then get the approval to sell aftermarket. And if it fits in our wheelhouse, we have our expertise, but we'll basically take on just about anything, so long as it's not a critical, flight safety component. That's not something that's really in our business model. The time it takes to get those kinds of product to market and the liability you assume with those kinds of products really just isn't our business model. So we tend to do non-flight safety, non-critical components. So we identify an opportunity, we reverse engineer, and we have, so we're real heavy on the engineering quality side and the ability to reverse engineer. So we have our own little metrology department. We've got 3D scanners, fully robotic coordinate measuring machines, various other inspection equipment. We have our own, unlike not all the HEICO Parts Group facilities have an in-house PhD, but we have one, a materials engineer, that helps us with our reverse engineering process. So when we reverse engineer, we don't just take and get the geometry, but we cut it up and dig deep down into that part, make sure we understand every facet of that part. And understandably so, because when you're flying at 35,000 feet and you have aftermarket parts on your aircraft, you want to make sure they're working as good or better than your OEM. And that's one of the requirements. So we reverse engineer it, and then we apply for the FAA approval. You can imagine the oversight that we have from the FAA. So like Boeing and some of the other large aircraft companies, we have our own, HEICO has its own internal FAA referred to as an ODA, an organizational delegated authority. So HEICO's ODA oversees us and audits us, and then the FAA audits the ODA and us too. So basically just more people all up in our business. But again, rightfully so. But that's sort of where, that's one of the areas where we bring value to the customer, right? Is that we do the reverse engineering, and you can reverse engineer and manufacture a part, but if they don't have the authority, that FAA approval to put it on the aircraft, it doesn't do them any good. So we have that relationship with the FAA through HEICO, and Seal Dynamics had that ability before HEICO bought them. So we already had some strong FAA relationships. But obviously HEICO's got a great relationship with the FAA. So together we're able to provide that value to the customer and go through that whole process, so they don't have to worry about it. They just say, hey, here, can you make this part? We take it, come back, sometime later with a good part. So I'm sorry, hit the wheel button. All right. So then after we reverse engineer it, we approve our design and we send it out for manufacturers, some of our sub tiers, our suppliers. They send us the first article in, we get those first articles, and HEICO's extremely, normally a company might just provide one. We get 3 first articles and we go and run it through the gambit. We'll cut one up and make sure that all the things that our customer or supplier said they were going to do and our design requirements require, we go and validate everything down to the grain structure, the coatings, everything, right? So we conform that first article. We complete the FAA approval process and get the supplement to use that on that platform, whether it's 737, an Embraer 145, whatever that aircraft is. And then ultimately we're able to sell that product, and we write our own 8130-3 airworthiness tags as well. So we provide that end article to the customer, and they can put it directly onto their aircraft. So we provide nice aftermarket solutions and save those guys thousands and millions of dollars, which helps keeps everybody airlines tickets down. Hey, Phil, if I miss somebody raising their hands, let me know if there's a question or something like that. So Seal Dynamics, now this is a footprint of Seal Dynamics world locations, not necessarily HEICO. HEICO's, you could multiply that by 50 probably and get HEICO's footprint. But these are just Seal Dynamics. And Seal Dynamics started out as a distribution, aircraft parts distribution. And we do just the PMA reverse engineering down here in Tampa. And we do some shipment out of our facility. But actually right behind me, this picture is of our distribution facility outside of or in Long Island, New York, which is almost like a little mini Amazon, but for the aircraft industry. So we have our distribution in New York, and it's our main company headquarters, Seal Dynamics headquarters. And then we're located here in Tampa. Tampa, we have a bunch of other facilities strategically located around the world. And then, as you can see, we touch just about what seems about every airline around the world. Like I said, and this is sort of what brought us through the pandemic too, because even though commercial, tourism aircraft travel sort of plummeted during the pandemic, fortunately, the freight industry has carried us through for the most part, because UPS, FedEx, Amazon, they're really good about using PMA parts, So they've continued to purchase, obviously, and have done really well through the pandemic. So we were positioned quite well, at least to carry us through the hard times there. So we do a breadth of product. Like our name says, Seal Dynamics, we do a lot of seals. And all kinds of seals too, things that you would see around the door when you walk into the aircraft. Seals in the wing and various components, seals around the oven door in the galley. But we do other things as well, such as seat cushions. We do some bearings, landing gear bearings, waste filters. So things you would see obviously in the cabin of the aircraft too, tray tables, we do toilet seats. So the breadth of the product that we're willing to do is only limited, like I said, by the criticality of the product. We don't want to take on that flight safety stuff. Not that we don't have the engineering know-how to do it, but with regards to when I worked at BLAC does PMA or aftermarket parts for high pressure turbine blades, very niche. But it takes them years from the time they get a request to the time they get that part to market, as years as opposed to months in our case. So, and it's a good business model, works for us. So as you can see, a breadth of product that we take on. I think we have probably about 1,400 parts or so in our overall catalog, and then HEICO above and beyond that. Right, so something that I like to talk to educators about, and if you're ever doing this, a lot of times, teachers have no idea the breadth of roles that are in a manufacturing facility. They have in their mind, there's a bunch of machinists and guys that run around and tell the machinists what to do, and they don't understand the whole breadth of various roles that you can find in a manufacturing facility. So I like to highlight some of those roles and what kind of education they have, so that when they're talking to their students, they can say, hey, look, here's some some opportunities. If these are things that you're interested in, it doesn't necessarily need to mean that, hey, if you're interested in IT, you got to go work for Microsoft. You can go and have a fulfilling IT career in a manufacturing facility. And so things I like to point out in our facility, our ops is really sort of our supply chain and quality people, because like I said, we're not actually cutting chips. And so if we were cutting chips like they do or LPI where Frank works, then there'd be a whole section here for operations where you have your cell leaders, your machine operators, and things of that nature. And so I run the quality group, and engineering and quality group are probably by far the largest parts of our organization. And I think the neat things about the quality group is you've got such a breadth of backgrounds. So like our quality engineer, who's recently received his certified quality engineer from ASQ, his degree was in history, actually. He's got a 4-year degree in history, and when he graduated college, it wasn't really working out for him. He wanted to be a teacher, so he ended up going to manufacturing, which his father works for us too, and he's got 35 years, I think, experience. And so he quickly saw the value of manufacturing, and he's been moving up in the ranks. But I'd like to point out to people that we've got, everybody from, a master's in engineering all the way down to just a high school diploma with certifications. The breadth of educational background is a wide variety. What really makes, I think, good quality people, and I suspect the majority of you, if not all of you, can agree with me, it's really the attitude and the aptitude to get the concepts, because then they can definitely learn a great deal of those things on the job. So I have a case scenario, a case study. This is something that we did a couple of years back, and I thought I'd sort of walk you sort of through this process where a customer comes to us with a problem. Hey, here's a part we'd like for you to reverse engineer for us. And so we, in this particular case, the customer came to us and asked if we could sell them the drag link, which is a drag link for the blocker door. And this is the engine that goes on the 757 thrust reverser. So for those of you that aren't familiar with a thrust reverser, as the aircraft's coming and landing, depending on the engine, many of them will have these cowls that slide back over the back end of the engine, and that causes these vents to open up in addition to the cowls blocking the thrust behind, and forces that thrust back forward. So you get a reverse of the thrust. And then obviously there have to be components that hold those parts that slide back into place. And those are these drag links here. So this is a blow up of that section, and this is the component, and it is in the airflow, so it has an airfoil shape to it. So we take that part, we do our reverse engineering, and I have a little video here. Can you guys see the video? Thumbs up, Phil, if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is a coordinate measuring machine. For those of you that may not be familiar, there are manual ones. This is a fully automated one. And this part right here is the drag link itself. These stanchions underneath it are just simply holding devices. In order for this has got a fully articulating head so that it can come down and even touch the bottom of it. So coordinate measure machine's got this little ruby in space. And it can pick up all the, as it touches, it's building a three-dimensional image of that part. I like that there's actually this is the software that the machine goes around, picks up the part. This is the software that picks it up. Show that's the fully articulating head there. So for those of you that work in operations and manufacturing too, you might recognize there's some lean manufacturing principles going on here. One are these stanchions. This allows these stanchions. It's nice because we have a little 3D printer that we use at work. Not a really high end one. You don't need to spend 10 grand on a 3D printer to get some low end solutions. This printer you can get off of Amazon for about $300-400, and it serves its purpose well. I think it paid for itself for these two prints right here, actually. But in lean manufacturing, you want to be able to make sure that you're always putting that part back in the same place all the time, every time. And then two, these plates slide along the CMM surface plate and are magnetically locked. So I can have a setup, and on another over on the side, I can have a second set up ready to go, so that when this one's done inspecting, the inspector just slides out that one and slides in the new one, hits go, and while that machine's running, they can take care of and put the part back and stuff like that. So I like that. There's actually we got some lean manufacturing principles going on there as well, which I totally geek out on. So again, this is our coordinate measure machine, taking care of getting the underside there. That this drag link, like I said, has an airfoil cable to it, so it needs to go around and get the entire profile. So this is one of our areas where we earn our bread and butter, is in our inspection, both in our reverse engineering process and then our ability to validate the product afterwards, as we're doing here. So this is after the part has been reverse engineered, manufactured by our supplier, and now we're doing like the first article kind of inspection. And then as regular production parts, after we fully approved them, we'll get the regular production parts in. We have a regular inspection program for all those lots that come in. We don't just necessarily receive the product from our supplier and stick it on the shelf. We continue to validate that product as we get it. So that's in a nutshell. It's a really small facility. We have a couple of small office bays, but for the most part, that machine, that coordinate measure machine, and one slightly smaller than it, and I've got a new force gauge testing I'm really excited about. But other than that, in our shipping facility, it's pretty much the bulk of our facility, and that's one of the reasons why I say I think it's better to show it virtually as opposed to doing a tour, because you can spin around and see the whole place in a matter of moments. Does anybody have questions?
If anybody has any questions, and if you don't want to verbalize your question yourself, you can put it into the chat and I'll read it off for you, or you can just let me know that you have questions, and I'll call on you to unmute and to talk with Pete.
Quick question, Peter. What's the accuracy you can achieve with that machine?
Oh, that's great. So it's not a Zeiss, but I think the calibration is out to 6 decimal places. However, the accuracy of the machine and as people well know, is it's not just the machine. You've got to incorporate the entire system, right? And that entire system includes, the fixtures, the person setting up the part, the variability and other environmental factors. So even though the calibration might go out to 6 decimal places, it doesn't necessarily mean that the entire system is accurate. So I'm really comfortable with delivering inspection results at 4 decimal places, if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Yep. But I think the other thing you were talking about probably goes into the test method validation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. That's where you encounter everybody contribution into it.
Yeah. So and two, it depends on. Sometimes I get frustrated with people. They're trying to validate the inspection data, out to 5 decimal places or something for a part that's plus or minus 10 thou, right? Or 0.01. I'm like, don't spend a lot of time on that. If you can, if it's 0.01 and you've got 4-digit accuracy, you can call it a day and move on to something more critical. But we do a split ball bearing actually for the main landing gear into the 737, and it's a spherical bearing made out of copper beryllium, and the two halves, when they're put together, its outside profile is 5/10,000ths of an inch, so really tight. And it's interesting. I created a program that virtually matches the two components together in order to analyze that profile as well. But so a great deal more validation goes into that part as opposed to, say, the latch that holds up a tray table, right?
So Pete, how large a workforce do you have there at Seal Dynamics? And then how many people are in the quality group?
Great question. So before the pandemic, there were a total of 10 of us in the quality group, and I'm down to about, I think, 7 now.
Okay, and the whole facility is
So the whole facility, all Seal Dynamics, prior to pandemic, we were I think 35, and we're at 30 today. And then Seal Dynamics altogether, I think, is around 120 if you include the New York facility. Yeah.
Oh, that's smaller than I expected. The whole of Seal Dynamics. I was surprised.
Yeah. Now Heiko's around 5,000. They got a much larger footprint.
Okay. Any questions? I've got some more, but I'll see if I'll let the audience ask a little bit. Okay, I don't see any yet, but put them in the chat if you have them, or otherwise let me know. So Pete, how do you go about in the work environment there? How do you go about identifying improvements that can be made, and not so much in the product? You're really bound by the product itself. But how do you go about making improvements in process and just in the work environment?
Yeah, I think it's what's most important is empowering your workforce, that the people that are doing the majority of the processes that are making the parts that are making the company money on an hour by hour basis, they have to feel empowered to raise their hand and say, look, I got a better way to do this. And so that's something I preach and I live by on a day-to-day basis. So when someone comes to me with a process improvement, especially if it's something I can implement immediately, like I've had an inspector come to me, and then from the time that they gave me their concept to the time that we are printed off, I designed it, printed it off on our 3D printer and implemented it, was an ergonomic improvement, actually, was about an hour and a half. And I think, and so, I think it's important that, like myself as a director and a quality manager and the people that are sort of in leadership positions, I want to make sure that they know that I'm willing to stop what I'm doing, unless I'm like in the meeting with some critical meeting or something like that. A lot of my stuff on a day-to-day basis, I'm able to stop. I can come back to it. And so I'll stop and dedicate time to that process or product improvement or something of that nature. And then the other thing too that I do when somebody comes to me with a process improvement, I don't necessarily make them the owner of it, but I definitely make sure that they're part of it. So, over the last year and a half, I've been able to get some of my inspectors trained up in SolidWorks, which is our CAD software that we use. So in many cases, they'll come to me and they've already modeled up something in SolidWorks, and I'm like, hey, let's print it out and give it a try. We might go through a few iterations or something like that, or maybe it's an administrative process, and we'll quickly grab the team together. Hey, how is this? So and so's got this idea. we really think we need to bounce this off of some other people, because sometimes if somebody comes up with a great idea, or at least it's a great idea in their head, and then you run it past a couple other people, then they're like, I don't know, let's think, did you think about this, or did you think about this? And then you've always got the one naysayer, like, no, I don't want change, right? So but if you incorporate those people into the process too, where everybody feels like they're a part of that improvement and has some sort of say into it, it's more likely going to be have an effective implementation as well. So I think it starts with the culture, and I think you all would agree with me too. Just quality, you can always tell if a company's got a good quality organization, a good quality product, and a good quality system, and if their leadership preaches it, knows it, and loves it. Does that answer your question, Phil?
Okay.
Awesome.
Yes, thanks. I've got another question, but I'll just wait a second, see if anybody else has one. Go ahead, Tara. Go ahead.
Does your company, does it allow time for the employees to work on these improvements? Is there a set time, or you just kind of do it ad hoc? Like, how does that work?
That's a great question. So we definitely have some priorities with regards to, when product comes into our receiving. We might have a back order, because we're like an Amazon. We're not making parts to POs. We have the stuff on shelf, right? So just like when you put an order in Amazon, you want them to ship that like then, right? You want to ship it right now, and you wanted it yesterday. So sometimes that's the case with us, where or maybe we don't even have it on shelf. We need to. It's just coming in, and we need to get it inspected and onto the shelf right away. So in those cases, we got those back orders. Those will take priority. But if we don't have any priority parts that need to get to right away, and then I'll tell the inspector, hey, look, we don't have any. We might have product that needs to be inspected, but if it's not something that's pending, a back order or an aircraft, we say aircraft on the ground, an AOG, that's holding an airline up from launching an aircraft, then I'll say, hey, go work on it, definitely. And like in the cases like that we make, for example, certifications or training through ASQ or other services like that, where we want that person to work on those things, we'll schedule time. I say, look, I want you while you're working on CQE, I want you to set aside 4 hours a week. Just block it off on your schedule, and then go shut your door or whatever, right? So we do stuff like that. I think that's part of management's responsibility, is to accommodate that. Because the reality is, if your people are making process improvements, it's going to save you more time in the long run anyways, right? You're going to have a better employee, you're going to have a better process. Give them the time, invest that time into both your processes and the person. So yes, we provide them with opportunity.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead, Eric.
Peter, as you were talking about your relationship with the FAA, something came to mind is the relationship with the FAA and Boeing came under scrutiny. Has there been any blowback to your relationship with the FAA?
That is an outstanding question, Hervé. So we're definitely, and I'm sure companies around the world that have either direct oversight from the FAA or other ODAs, we're definitely seeing an increase in FAA auditing and oversight, and rightfully so. I think that I think HEICO though has a system that unlike your Boeings and your GEs and your Airbuses and the big OEMs, your PMA, your aftermarket companies, we can't take that risk. People already don't want to use aftermarket. They want the OEM, right? I don't know if I'm a guy that works on my own cars and stuff like that, right? And often you want to go get the OEM part. You want the original equipment for your car, right? So same thing with airlines. There are some parts of the world, they are anti-aftermarket, right? Military for one. It is hard, at least for Seal Dynamics, to break into the military market. Doesn't matter how much money we're saving them. You got these military engineers like, nope, it's not OEM, not OEM. You know? So as an aftermarket manufacturer, we cannot risk having an in-flight shutdown. It wouldn't be just bad for us. It'd be bad for all aftermarket companies. And we don't want to be that one, right? So it is extremely critical. So in fact, HEICO's even voluntarily partnered with the FAA to help step up. The FAA is starting to move from a quality management system to a safety management system. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. I think it's NAS 9927, National Aerospace Standard 9927, safety management system. And it's really a combination of a quality management system and a, Frank, help me out here. COS,
safety,
continued operational safety. Yeah, continued operational safety. So really the life end, after the product's out in the field and you're monitoring the life of the part too, and you're merging that all together into a safety management system. And so HEICO's working actively with the FAA to implement that system here in HEICO across our organizations, ahead of the FAA requiring it. So I think that HEICO's position is, look, we're going to lead in safety and in quality. We're not going to wait for legislation to come out and dictate it to us.
Okay. Thanks.
And I think the FAA gets that, and they know that, and they see that in our organization.
Mm-hmm.
other questions? Okay, I'll ask my second question then, Pete, if you don't mind. So the your supply chain is critical to Seal Dynamics as far as the parts. So everything that it's critical to everybody, but in your case, they're making your part for you. And can you tell us a little something about how you manage that supply chain? As far as vendor qualifications and feedback and all that kind of thing.
So Frank and Carl could attest to this, that it's almost like we treat our suppliers like customers, because in many ways, we, like, for example, the business of aftermarket, because we're not the OEMs, we're not issuing these huge POs to our suppliers. You got companies like Boeing that are working with these, big seal manufacturing, silicone rubber seal manufacturers like Meggitt or Parker or Trelleborg or some of those large companies. And, they're issuing millions, their POs are millions of dollars, long-term contracts. And then we walk in, we're like, hey, here's our $20,000 purchase order. And so it's difficult just to get them to make our product for us, right? And so we have a very interesting dynamic between us and the customer, or I'm sorry, between us and the supplier. The nice thing about our relation, that our product, is that we tend to know the price. We know the price up front. We can work with our supplier very easily, and we don't come back to them in 6 months to say, all right, we need you to make this for 10% cheaper. And if you don't, we're going to pull the contract, right? Because Boeing and GE and Pratt, they do that to their suppliers. They're like, all right, you're making it for us for $100. This time next year, you got to do it for $80. And we're only going to pay you every 6 months. And so we don't do that. We lock in a price, and we keep that price for years. And so if they're making continuous improvements at their facility on that product, then they get all those continuous improvements as pure profit, And so those are the benefits of working with us. But it is a tricky situation, because sometimes, especially like, we've got this one supplier, our biggest supplier has got Boeing and Spirit have a huge footprint. They're living in their facility and telling them what to do. And it's so hard to get them to make our parts. And so sometimes we find ourselves in these precarious situations where we can't get our parts made, and we've already made commitments to our customers. So, I mean, from a quality standpoint, how we get them approved and so forth, ISO 9001 and AS 9100, require you to go through some measure of evaluation. And like a lot of us, in some cases, down there in Hollywood, if we know they already have an approved vendor that we can use for one of our parts, we have it written into our quality management system that if LPI or Jet Avion or Turbine Kinetics up in Connecticut, if they've approved a vendor, then ipso facto we have too. So that's something we write into our quality management system. But we also do that because we know each other's systems. In fact, we all use the same kind of evaluation process. So there are those ways that we use that to one, we don't want to bother a supplier with multiple documents for evaluation purposes when it's the exact same thing and a sister company. No need to bother them with that, and it makes our processes a bit more efficient. But there is an evaluation process, and we do scorecards, especially on all our big suppliers. I might do it once a year, or in a case like Megit, I'm giving them one every month to show them where they are on our radar and how they're performing. And so, and I give them all the data associated with the product they're sending us, so they can take that aggregate data and apply it directly to process improvements in their facility. So it's definitely, it's got to be a really tight relationship where we know we often make trips to their facilities, not necessarily just to audit them, although, whenever a quality person steps in, foot inside a facility, you're just by the nature doing, site audits and stuff like that. But really to develop those kinds of relationships that you need in order to work through issues when they come up. But it is definitely a different relationship that I had, like say when I was at GE or when I was at a facility that was, a primary supplier to GE, for example. It's a much different, we're much more tighter than those kinds of relationships.
Okay. Well, thanks. I just want to kind of follow on to the supplier question there. Just wanted to ask is, the world the world manufacturing is moving to industry 4.0, manufacturing 4.0, a lot of different names for it, but it's advanced technologies. And in regards to suppliers, I mean, do you have any plans, or are you working on any digital solution to for connecting your suppliers or even connecting your customers to like Amazon does? You mentioned Amazon. I imagine that you've got something like Amazon's process on the purchasing side, but are those kinds of things in the works if they're not already in place?
So that's an interesting question, and certainly one that my leadership and I have or I've already been talking about. Have you ever heard of blockchain?
Yes.
So blockchain is essentially the security behind like Bitcoin and stuff like that, and it's really a way for you could essentially easily use a blockchain track, say aluminum ore that has aluminum to the mill or to the smelter, to the mill, to the caster, to the manufacturer, the machine house, to us, and then to the end customer, all using blockchain. And there's a great deal, obviously, of value in that with regards to traceability, right? I mean, that's a large part of what we do in quality at our facilities and in aerospace. And same thing, medical and things of that nature is traceability of that product through its from womb to tomb, so to speak. And the blockchain is definitely is on the horizon. I think the challenge that we'll need to get past is not so much its ability, because it's actually blockchain offers the ability to maintain the security, and that's one of the reasons why so many people around the world like Bitcoin, because it's security. But
yeah.
The thing about it is, when it comes to ITAR, trade on arms and stuff of that nature, when you have an integrated ERP system, enterprise resource planning that goes essentially across the entire supply chain, that might include companies in China or in Europe somewhere, that starts to people start to get a little, hey, I don't know if we want them all part of this one system. And so I think that's what, before we start to fully integrate some of those things, those kinds of questions are going to have to be worked out. Have you guys ever heard of Fusion 360 from Autodesk? So
I haven't, no.
right, so Fusion 360 is CAD software. Well, Autodesk, and it's great. It's used. They're doing a really good job of implementing it in education, academic organizations. But a lot of industry, manufacturing industry, is picking up because I've used it. It's a great CAD software program. But the thing about it is, one of the things they do is you literally, every time you pull one of your files, you're pulling it from the cloud, right? And then when you're done, it goes back into the cloud and vice versa or whatever. But the problem is where that cloud is kept, and it's kept at one of the facilities in England. And so DoD is like, nope, can't do that. It's got to be here in the U.S. And so these kinds of they're using all these IT 4.0 and or industry 4.0 kind of stuff, but then when it runs into ITAR 4.0, it's got some boundaries to get past. So just some interesting questions.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Pete. That very interesting information about Seal Dynamics, and we appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I'll be in touch with you. You're very welcome. And I invited you without knowing you were an ASQ person yourself. So figured you might be because you're in quality, but glad to hear that you are, and you represent HEICO, so to speak, for all of ASQ. So thanks again for being here tonight.